What I'm about to tell you isn't fiction. These aren't campfire ghost stories or urban legends. These are true events, things I've lived, things I've witnessed, and things the old folks of my mountain town swore happened with their own eyes. And if you don't believe in demons, by the end of this story, you might start. You probably heard the old tale. Before man ever set foot on this earth, something else lived here. Something older. Something carved out of fire. They were called demons, and like fire itself, their nature was chaos, murder, war, and madness. When God decided mankind would inherit the earth, he ordered his angels to drive the demons out of the open fields and into the cracks of the world, into caves, deserts, and mountains. That's why people who live in lonely places, the Rockies, the Appalachians, the deserts of Arizona, still whisper about them. Because sometimes they're still here. I grew up in such a place, a mountain valley town in Colorado, surrounded by cliffs on every side. To the east and west, two rivers ran cold and fast, each bordered by towering trees. Beautiful by day, but after sunset, nobody dared walk those riversides. Everyone knew that once the sky went black, the valley didn't belong to us anymore. It belonged to them. I'll tell you what I've seen with my own eyes, what I've lived, and if you think I'm lying, remember this. Sometimes the truth is stranger than any ghost story.
The footsteps. I was in high school when it first happened. Every summer, I'd come back from the city and stay with my folks. I had a habit of climbing a ridge outside of town at dusk to watch the sun disappear behind the mountains. I'd sit there long after the last light had gone, then stroll back down through the dark. To get home, I had to cross one of the rivers. A rough trail cut through the brush, opening just enough for a man to pass. One night, I was walking, humming to myself, when I heard it, the crunch of footsteps on dead leaves. So close, so damn close it was like whoever it was could have reached out and touched me. I smiled, thinking it was someone from town, another late wanderer. I turned to look. No one. The trail behind me was empty. That was when I knew what was following me. But I didn't run. That would have been a mistake. The old people always said, they feed on fear. If you let them know you're afraid, they own you. So I kept walking, slower even, still humming like I hadn't noticed. The footsteps followed me all the way to the riverbank, and when I finally crossed to the other side, they stopped. Just gone.
A strange scent. Another time, I was near a ravine, checking on my father's land. As I came to a thicket, something hit me. A smell. Not a normal smell. Sweet, intoxicating, like flowers that had never grown on this earth. It wrapped around me, pulled me in. I thought maybe wild roses had bloomed there, so I poked through the branches with a stick. But there were no flowers, no plants, nothing. Just the smell. It filled me up, made me dizzy. For a moment, I didn't want to leave, didn't care if I ever left. That night, when I told my family, they turned pale. My uncle snapped at me. "You fool! You were stirring up their den. If they'd wanted, they could have dragged you into that ravine and no one would have found your body."
The thing in my room. One summer night, years later, I couldn't sleep. I tossed, turned. Sometime past midnight, I rolled over and froze. A shadow, 7 or 8 feet tall, stood in the corner. Its mouth hung open, wide enough to swallow my head. It moved closer. My heart slammed in my chest, but I couldn't move, couldn't scream, couldn't even breathe. It was as if the thing had paralyzed me. When it bent over me, I realized it was shaped like a bear, a huge black bear, but not a bear, not really. It leaned so close, I felt its breath burning my skin. Then the world went black. When I woke, I wasn't sure if I had fainted or if it had left me.
The boy who angered them. When I was a kid, there was a classmate of mine. Let's call him Ryan. Ryan was a wild one. If you told him not to do something, he'd do it twice just to spite you. West of town, just before the river, there was a ravine with willow trees growing thick along its edge. Everyone said demons lived there. We were warned over and over, never throw stones into that ravine. Never disturb them. But Ryan didn't care. He started tossing rocks down there, laughing, daring the rest of us to do it. Days later, he had his first fit. Screaming in class, clutching his stomach, thrashing on the floor like something inside him wanted out. It didn't stop. The fits kept coming. He grew violent, attacking classmates, choking boys, yanking girls' hair. His strength was unnatural. It took 3 grown men to hold him when the seizures hit. Teachers beat him with sticks, but he didn't even flinch. Months passed. Ryan became a terror. None of us kids would go near him. Finally, a preacher was called. The preacher forced the spirits to speak. They said they were from the ravine, that Ryan had injured one of their children with his stones, that they had claimed him as punishment. Only after hours of prayer and bargaining did they agree to leave him. And when they did, Ryan went limp, like the life had been drained out of him. He survived, but he was never quite the same.
The bride. Years later, my cousin Mark got married. Beautiful girl. But soon after the wedding, strange things began happening in his house. Screaming, fights. His wife became violent, defiant, like someone else lived inside her skin. I brought along a friend of mine, Pastor James. He had a reputation for dealing with things. When Mark's wife saw James, she screamed, tried to flee. Mark grabbed her, but she fought like an animal, her face twisting, her eyes bulging, until she didn't even look human anymore. James began his work. At first, the thing inside her stayed silent. But when he pressed, when he burned it with oil, struck her feet with his staff, it finally spoke. "My name is Chris," it snarled through her mouth.
I've loved her since the night she stepped from the bath. I'll never let her go. Its voice was deep, male, wrong. James thundered back, "You will leave. You will never return." The thing cursed him, threatened his bloodline, screamed as if unseen hands were dragging it away. And then it was gone. Mark's wife collapsed, gasping. When she woke, she was herself again. From that day forward, she became the perfect wife, the perfect daughter-in-law. Mark now has 3 children, living a life no one would believe if they hadn't seen what came before.
Every story leaves behind a shadow, and every shadow hungers for more. If tonight's terror kept you awake, don't let it end here. Like this video, share the fear with others, and subscribe to Dead Lantern, because the moment the lantern dies, so does the light between you and the nightmare.